Hi, I'm Denby, and I help take the mystery out of perimenopause and midlife, putting the power of healing back in your hands. And in today's video, for the women out there, especially those moving through perimenopause or on the precipice of that, I have one question for you. Are you prepared to do anything to improve your health? It's no secret nowadays that we have been lied to for a very long time about what true health actually is. We have the lie around DNA. We have the lie in the past, in the 1950s and 60s, that thalidomide and DDT were actually beneficial for our health, particularly for pregnant mothers. We have the lie that tobacco was unhealthy for us, which with all the chemicals that they add into cigarettes is true, but nicotine as a plant medicine, tobacco as a plant medicine, is a very potent ally. We have the lie that the allopathic system has told us for many years that your body is attacking itself and that things like cancer and other chronic diseases are inherited based on your genetics. Ancient practices such as shivambu or urine therapy have been demonized and made taboo in society. And of course, we have the whole story around perimenopause and menopause, not as a sacred rite of passage, an empowering time of life for women. So, like everything that I share on this channel, I'm all about natural health, about empowering you and reminding you about the wisdom that's held in your own body. And I think it's high time that we started questioning many of the narratives that we've been fed and believed in ourselves that are no longer aligning with that deeper truth. And in my experience, both personally and professionally, when we face our own trauma, when we look at our inner demons, that is the stepping stone, the first marker of self-care and also self-discovery. Because when you start to take responsibility for your participation, for the choices that you've made regarding your health throughout your life, when you're an adult, of course, when you were younger as a child, your parents were responsible for those decisions. But once you hit adolescence and you become officially an adult, then every choice that you make has a consequence. And particularly in the realm of women's health, what I and many other practitioners are seeing is an accumulative poisoning of women's bodies. So it's okay to have therapists, of course, and doctors and other people to advise you and to make suggestions, but ultimately the question comes down to each of us as an individual. How am I living my life? What am I doing? What am I feeding myself? What am I believing and giving energy to that is perhaps contributing to my ongoing or repeated health crises? And this is when everything really comes up, when we're asked to step out of our comfort zone as we move towards perimenopause. So I have a list of a few things that I'd like to share with you for you to contemplate today as you listen to this video and as you feel into your body and listen to the feedback that she gives you. The first big one is obviously changing our diet, being prepared to be a little bit more disciplined with how we feed ourselves and also the times that we feed ourselves. Because we don't actually have to eat 3 meals a day. Originally, we were nomads and we ate seasonally. We ate when food was abundant and we stored food from the times when it wasn't. So for some people's metabolism, 1 or 2 meals a day is enough at the right time. For other people with low blood sugar or other ailments, things that need to be supported more specifically, they may need to snack during the day and that works for them. But ultimately, when you balance your metabolism, when you figure out first how yours functions and then work to balance that, your sense of natural appetite, knowing when to eat, knowing when to drink, returns. Now, if you're interested in learning a bit more about that, I have a free sacred timing tracker on my website, as well as a free earth meditation to get you started with that whole Chinese body clock concept and understanding what your metabolism is and what you can do to support it. Giving up alcohol and also sugar are two big ones for a lot of people. But even if you can just do this intermittently and save the alcohol for special occasions, you will start to notice that your liver will feel a lot healthier and cleaner. And that, of course, affects your energy levels, it affects your skin, your sleeping, your menstrual cycle, and your libido. We need to be prepared to exercise every day. Now, you don't have to go to a yoga class every day. You don't have to spend hours at the gym. You can literally do one yoga pose or one fascial maneuver and just be consistent with that. Getting on your mat every day is actually more a reflection of your psychological commitment, also good for your body, but just giving that attention and time to yourself is most important. We need to be prepared to stop taking all the tests, all the scans. You know, when you get those letters from the government saying it's time for your bowel scan or your this, that, and the next test. A lot of these tests, you don't know where your body fluids or your body matter ends up, a bit like the placenta. So if we're constantly scanning ourselves and being told that now you're a certain age, then this is inevitable, then that keeps your nervous system in a state of anticipation, of just always on hyperdrive and being alert. And that doesn't work for anybody, especially when we're moving through rites of passage like hormonal changes and perimenopause. By the same token, stop taking these things, and not just the recent ones since 2020, but I'm talking about all of those interventions. So you're actually putting more stress on your system when you take those sorts of things. When you take a pill or a tablet instead of taking a herb or a medicine tea or going for a walk, getting into the sunshine, getting into nature, hydrating, eating well, moving your body. Switching to eco alternatives in the home is really important, as well as the skincare regime, the products that you choose to put on your face and your body. So ideally choosing organic products and household, cleaners, etc., that don't have a lot of chemical additives to them. It's not just better for your health and for your family, usually works better than all the chemical products, and it's also better for the environment because when it goes out the stormwater drain, none of that pollution is going in to harm the ocean animals. Another big one or two that most people may not want to hear is that quite often you are working a job that you really don't like, that you sort of contract every time you get up in the morning to go to it. You might be surrounded by colleagues that you don't resonate with. You might be just working for the man because you've got to pay bills. And whilst that is a reality for many people in this realm, we can also change that. We don't have to live by that rule. We can actually work for ourselves or find that work-life balance, that health work-life balance better for ourselves. So the second one is about leaving marriages or relationships that are making us literally sick as well. And again, that's up to you to determine. But if you are in a relationship where you are constantly fighting off ailments, you're always depressed, there's no love or connection there anymore, and you're feeling that your body is just getting weaker and weaker and older before it's time, things are being exacerbated, and you're not sleeping, etc. Well, again, all that feedback that your body gives you, then there might be something there for you to really feel into and make a strong choice around whether you're going to continue to sacrifice your health, your mental health, your physical health, and your well-being to stay in that particular relationship or to stay in that particular job. So these are all questions that come up for us when we start to shift as women. Men's business I can't speak to, but they have their own process, of course. But for women, when our children, if you've had children, are old enough now to be self-sustainable or they've left the nest and now it's time for you to start thinking about yourself after many years of caregiving and putting everybody else before you, your needs are paramount now. And it's not from the space of being selfish, like I don't care about anybody else. That's another illusion that we've been sold about self-love. Selfishness and caring about what works for you, putting your needs first, is the highest form of self-love. So we do that with an awareness that we are not neglecting everybody else, but we are also not wanting to put ourselves on the chopping block anymore in order to keep the peace or make everybody else happy whilst we're slowly dying inside. This is part of your elder work. This is what determines the rest of your life, the quality of the rest of your years, however long you will be here, as a mage, as a woman in her power. So when your body starts to shift and change, rather than reverting into the fear narratives and dialogues that we've all been conditioned to believe and trust in, the invitation is to step back, to be strong in yourself, and to feel into some of the issues that you may not have felt into most of your life. Get support for that, of course, but also make time for your own inner wisdom, your own inner teacher to rise and inform you. And if we're doing that on a regular basis before we hit perimenopause, like throughout our life at various junctures and when we have certain experiences, then we're going to minimize the potential for chronic imbalances later on in life. Now, I've got a couple of courses on my website as well, along with those freebies I mentioned before, if you want some support to learn how to teach yourself and to embrace your own natural self-healing ability. You can find that on denbishita.com. So the next question is, does it seem that there are so many women that are reticent or unable to prioritize self-care and do this work, this self-healing work for themselves? Now, it could be fear of ridicule, fear of rejection from their family, fear of not being enough, not being worthy of that level of attention and care and healing. There may be a deep sense of unworthiness. And of course, that relates to childhood trauma that is still needing to be processed. They may not have the time. They might still be dealing with lots of family and work commitments. So finding even 5 minutes to sit down with a cup of tea is a challenge. Their reserves might actually be completely depleted to a really chronic level. And in those instances, then yes, you do need some other allopathic support. I would just suggest to make that temporary whilst you feed and nourish yourself. So eventually you can come back into full power and awareness. A lot of women are confused about information that's out there. That word misinformation has been used as a weapon on both sides of whatever narratives we've been fed since 2020 especially. So if you're confused and unsure about what to trust, who to trust, then that can also lead to years often of procrastination and delaying the inevitable, what you in your heart know you need to do and address. A lot of women are very traumatized and therefore disempowered, so they don't know where to start, and that ties into the sense of confusion. But I would say also a big one is the lack of finances, because we are told that to be organic and healthy is more expensive. And in some instances, that may be. But in my experience, at the beginning of your journey, when you're shifting from reliance on the public system and all of the medications and all the quick fixes and all the, the fast food remedies, there's a little bit of an investment that you need to make in yourself and in certain products to get you over that hump, so to speak, until you re-regulate yourself and you start to get your body working in attunement with nature. And then you need less and less of those additives and supplements. So that can be an excuse. All of these things can also be an excuse as well. And whilst I totally acknowledge that obviously not having resources or willpower, or feeling chronically depleted or not able to because of family circumstances and those sorts of things, they are all valid. So we need to reach a point where literally, I will no more, I can no longer, is the dialogue inside our bodies, where the risk of the unknown is actually less than the knowing that if we stay where we're at, things are only going to get worse. Now, every individual has to make that decision for themselves, of course, so I'm not telling you what to do. But one of the biggest obstacles that I've seen in recent years with women in particular is that many seem to be willing to double down on their previous choices rather than come out of their comfort zone and look at a new way of being, or to entertain new information, to consider different possibilities. Why do they do that? Well, again, from my observation, because if they were to do that, that would mean then that they'd have to own the consequences for every other health choice they'd made in their life, for themselves, but also possibly for their children and their loved ones. So that's very confronting. If you admit to yourself now, yes, I took that, for example, and it wasn't a good decision, but it's too intense for me to deal with that. If I do that, that means that I also now have to join the dots from all the other times in the past that I made similar choices and essentially sacrificed my own knowing, handed over my power to an external authority, then that is just way too much for a lot of women to cope with and to deal with. So we need to have compassion and respect for that, and knowing that everybody goes through their own rite of passage, their own hero's journey in that regard. Again, at some point, your body will put up a red flag, or rather a white flag, or a red one first and then a white one, and just say, we can't do this anymore. You can't function like this anymore. You need to do something. You need to change. So the question in this video was, what would that thing be? What would you be prepared to do to change the complete trajectory of your health experience so you could start thriving, not just surviving? One of the big things that we've been sold as midlife women is that we need to have hormone replacement therapy. So you do you as far as that goes. I would encourage you to do your research on both sides of the table. But there is an ancient practice which is proving to reduce all inflammation and ailments and imbalances in the human body. And it's been around for centuries, and it's called Shivambu. And now this has been made out to be one of the biggest taboos in society. So when I tell you that it's urine therapy, notice how your body feels. Instantly, probably contracted, rejection, thinking that I'm crazy, that that's all hocus pocus. But I would just encourage you, which is the purpose of this video today, to open your mind to the plethora of natural alternative remedies that are out there. And if things are getting that bad in your body, in your life, in your relationship, in your mental state, then why wouldn't you want to try anything that has the history and the potential to heal everything that you never thought could be healed? Because it really comes down to this. Doing nothing doesn't make a difference. So staying in the same rut, staying in the same vein, doing the same thing over and over again is not just the definition of insanity. It's not healthy. It's not empowering. That won't result in healing for you. It will perpetuate family trauma and illnesses. And ultimately, that attitude will be your downfall. Because that's not how an elder, how a mage acts. A mage stands strong in her truth. She trusts in the wisdom of her body, and she remains open to all of the remedies and information that are available to her and that she has learnt about and that she carries in some way in the cells of her body. It just comes down to her willingness to pause and activate that and then trust what her body tells her is right for her. So I hope that helps. I'll see you in the next video.